everyone, and welcome to the Rotary Club of Madison. I'm your president, Jason Ilstrup, and I want to thank you for joining us. And I want to say the bell looks a little bit differently today. I did not break it, because it's the only bell we've had in our entire 100-some-year history. It's getting repaired. Don't worry, folks. Don't worry, folks. Oh, yes, that is nice, isn't it? All right, thank you. Please remain standing for our opening patriotic song. Bob Dindorf will lead us in singing of This Land, accompanied by Jennifer Wending on the acoustic guitar.
Historical note, when I was president in 2009, I had that fixed, so I don't know what happened. All right. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. As I was walking a ribbon of highway, I saw above me an endless skyway. I saw below me a golden valley. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land is made for you and me. This land was made for you and me. Good afternoon.
We'll be back for happy birthday. I will not be doing that myself, yes. Thank you very much, Bob and Jennifer. Today's sponsor is Melinda Heinrichs and the Madison Public Schools Foundation. Let's give a huge round of applause to our friends Melinda and the team at the Madison Public Schools Foundation. Melinda's been a member of our club since 2017, has been president of the foundation since 2016. The foundation is a sole nonprofit dedicated to improving and supporting MMSD, its teachers, its students. The foundation is a connector forging vital partnerships between local businesses, civic organizations, and MMSD schools. The foundation has the support of our educators and our students, delivering material goods directly to classrooms through their Teacher Support Network program. And they are builders and stewards of a village of champions and supporters who believe public education and creating brighter futures for our students. Let's give a huge thanks again to Melinda Heinrichs and the Madison Public Schools Foundation for their support. Next up, we've got lots of guests, and our good friend Annette Helmer will introduce them all. Hello, Annette. How are you?
Well, correction to Jason, because I'm not introducing them all. We have a wonderful abundance of guests today. In fact, we have about 45 guests, so rather than dominate the meeting, reading everyone's name, I would just like to welcome all of our guests today. And if our guests in attendance would kindly stand so that our group can recognize you. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for attending our meeting.
All right, it's the beginning of the month, and that means we have new members. We are pleased to introduce two new members today. Let's start with Clement Abangwa. Please stand with your sponsor, Charles Tubbs. Clement is a Dane County Highway Commissioner and was born in Cameroon, and he and his wife Abigail have 4 children. Clement holds a bachelor's degree in civil engineering and a master's degree in structural engineering, both from Ahmadu Bello University in Zaire, Nigeria. Kunijin Hausa? No, doesn't speak Hausa. Okay. All right. He is a member of the Wisconsin County Highway Association, where he serves on the Bridge Committee and is the Machinery Committee, and is a member of the American Public Work Association. Clement is an advisor to the executive branch of the Association of Cameroonians here in Madison. He also enjoys watching movies and playing soccer. Welcome, Clement. Please remain standing. Will Matt Fair please stand with your sponsors, Mike McKay and Mark Clear? Sarah Eskridge is also one of Matt's sponsors. Matt is the Director of Local Government Relations at UW Health and was born in Wapaka, Wisconsin, and he and his wife, Connie, have 3 teenage children. Matt holds a bachelor's degree in psychology from Edgewood College and a master's degree in education from Pacific University. He served 2 terms on the Madison City Council and currently serves on the City of Madison's Community Development Block Grant Committee and the Madison Public Schools Foundation Board. Matt is a political news junkie who enjoys being with his family, coaching basketball, and going to at least 2 live shows each month. Well, that's great because his wife, Connie, works for FBC Live. So, yes. All right, please, let's give a huge round of applause for Clement and Matt, our new members at Rotary. And as past President Charles McLymans likes to say, your pin that you're receiving right now grants you access to over 40,000 Rotary clubs across the world. At Monday night's board meeting, our club board of directors elected officers for the upcoming Rotary year, which begins on July 1. It's not that far off. I will be gone. See ya. I'd like to introduce our new 2025-2026 club officers. If you're here with us today, please stand. First up, Anthony Gray, our current president-elect, and he will become president automatically on July 1st. Mark Green, our president-elect nominee, will automatically become president after Anthony's year. Mark, if you're here, please stand. And in big news, Janet Perino was elected our next president-elect nominee and will become president of the club in July of 2027. Sergeant-at-Arms will be Julie Swenson. Thank you very much, Julie. And the continuing roles of Pat Jenkins as secretary, Tara Grays as treasurer, and Nick Kern as assistant treasurer. Let's give a big thank you and another round of applause for these members who stood up to become our leaders. All right, it's fund drive time. Who's given? Raise your hand. Great, all of you, fantastic. We need even more, though. Let's bring up Rotary's great friend and our board member, Sarah Eskridge. I guess never mind. I should read this beforehand. Sarah's not here today, so I'm going to give you the update. Maybe we can move Anthony into the presidency role even quicker. Right. As of yesterday, drum roll please, Jane, we have $93,825. We are well over halfway to our goal of $140,000. 45% of you have given. So that looked like more than that raised their hands. So we need our friends that weren't here today to help out and give more. This is such an important moment for us to be able to give to community organizations that we believe in and that are part of the Rotary mission. All right, we're going to continue to highlight 5 high-impact excellence in education grants that we are distributing this year, thanks to the gifts that you give to the foundation. This week, we're going to hear about a grant that was awarded to the Big Brothers, Big Sisters of Dane County. Here to tell us more is Jenny Jeffers, member of our Excellence in Education grant. Hello, Jenny.
Hi, everybody. So I'm a member of the Excellence in Education Grant Committee, and we reviewed a bunch of grants, and we selected several, and I'm here to introduce Big Brothers and Big Sisters. So the Rotary Foundation provided a grant of $40,000 to Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Dane County. The grant will expand their 2 school-based mentoring programs. So obviously Big Brothers Big Sisters has the bigs and the littles, and there's not enough bigs out there in the world. So they're also doing school-based programs to provide mentoring during the school day at a number of schools throughout Madison and Dane County. So these programs have been proven to build confidence and increase connectedness to school, culture, and peers. So our grant dollars are being really well spent with this organization. We have a video that we're going to show right now so we can learn a little bit more about what our grant is funding.
The School Friends program has definitely met our expectations because it's been fantastic working with the Big Brothers Big Sisters staff. What I see on a daily basis when our scholars talk to me about the relationships that they have with their bigs and the fun that they're having with their bigs, they're really creating meaningful relationships with another safe adult in their life.
It's important because when I was younger, I didn't have my dad in the house. And that's not his situation, but I just know that I could have benefited a lot from having somebody that cared about me, that looked like me, and took time out of their day to come see me and spend time with me. It would have made a big difference in my life. It's definitely personal, and then I make it so that I can come here every Tuesday. You know, I'd be hurt when I can't make it or he's not here because it just means that much to me.
It's so huge that Big Brothers Big Sisters offers the School Friends program because we're meeting the scholars where they are at. The accessibility is huge.
I had extra time and I was working from home and I thought it would be good for me to get out and do something. And when I learned about this program, it's really easy to participate in this. It's easy to come right after school and spend an hour and go home. It's a really easy commitment. And it's turned out to be really fun.
The one thing that I will say is that we have a larger need than current the amount of bigs that are available for us. So it's such a big need. What they're doing is they're building up the life of an individual, which will then have positive impact on who knows how many other people within their lives. So the impact of a big is huge. And that's why we really enjoy working with the Big Brothers Big Sisters program.
I think the one thing I know about kids is the more adults in their life who care about them unconditionally and are there to support them, the better they will do in life. I do wish more kids had more adults, right? And this provides, you know, a core group of kids with another adult who is there for them. And I think the more kids who have that, the better the world would be.
So that was a little volunteer ask at the end of that video, in case you missed it. They obviously are hoping some more Rotarians might volunteer and be bigs or help with their school-based program. So I get the pleasure of introducing Sandy Morales, who I saw walk in, but I don't know where you're seated. Sandy, where are you? There, can you stand up? We just want to say congratulations for getting the grant. Sandy's obviously a fellow Rotarian, and we're really proud to be able to support Big Brothers Big Sisters as their excellent CEO. So well done, Sandy. So your Rotary grant dollars at work. There you see it.
Thank you, Jenny, and thank you, Sandy, very much for all you're doing for our community. We got international travel updates. There are 3 opportunities to join Rotarians on international travel in 2025. Our Rotary District has a friendship exchange team traveling to Turkey in May. Our club is helping fund a water project in Guatemala with the Rotary Club of Milwaukee, and they are planning 2 trips in early 2025 to the project site. Our international committee announces a trip to the solar well project in Liberia, planned for mid-May, and is seeking member interest for this trip. There's a half-sheet flyer on your table, so please check it out if you are interested. A moment of sadness. I want to let all the members know that Kay Swickenberg's mother, Ruth, passed away in West Bend yesterday. We are sending our best to her and our family, and all of our sympathies go her way. Birthdays today. We have birthdays to celebrate with a bit of humor and wisdom that complements Rotary's mission. We also encourage our members to give a gift to the club's Foundation Grants Endowment Fund, rounding up to 100 for our Synergy Scholarship Fund. Apparently you don't want me to sing happy birthday. Okay. December 1st, Paul Fanland. December 1st, Rhea Ludig. December 1st, Mary O'Brien. December 2nd, Jim Kruger. December 3rd, Greg Everts. December 6th, Helen Marks Dix. December 7th, Bill Connors. Thank you to our celebrants for your contribution to the Madison Rotary Foundation Community Grants Endowment Fund. Let's please join them in singing Happy Birthday.
Here we go. Just a moment. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rotarians. Happy birthday to you. Clap. Everybody clap.
All right, on to our program. Today's speaker is Dr. Joe Gothard. Joe grew up here and returned to Madison in May to become the superintendent of the Madison Metropolitan School District. He was previously superintendent of the St. Paul School District in Minnesota before coming back to Madison. He holds a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and a doctorate degree, all from Edgewood College. Joe joined the Rotary Club in September and is previously a Rotarian in Burnsville, Minnesota. Today he will outline what's next for MMSD. And on a personal note, as a father of a 2-year-old, I could not be more excited for him to go to MMSD schools in Thoreau because of the leadership of Joe and the team at MMSD. We look forward to your presentation and have made a contribution to the Rotary International Polio Plus Fund as a way to say thank you for speaking with us today. Also want to mention that we will hopefully have time for Q&A with our speaker at the end, but please wait for the microphone to ask your question. Let's welcome up MMSD Superintendent Joe Gothard to our podium.
Good afternoon. I've been looking forward to this. You all have welcomed me back with such open arms. Many of you I knew before from meetings right here in this Rotary, from other connections in the community, but I've gotten to meet some new folks as well, whether you're a parent, a partner, new to Madison, new to Rotary. It's been incredible. It's, in fact, one of the reasons that it compelled me to want to come back is knowing that this community existed. And I'm very grateful for that. Joining me today are a couple members of our Board of Education. Our Vice President, Maya Pearson, and Board Member Savion Castro. And again, very grateful for them to be spending some time here today. The sponsor of today's meeting is the Madison Foundation for Public Schools. Melinda couldn't be with us. Mary, are you here from the foundation? There you are. Mary, thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for your support as well. So to start today, as you see on the screen, people, purpose, and pride. It's not real fancy. It's not what a lot of superintendent executives do when they begin in a new district with a 100-day plan that gives every waking hour of what they're supposed to do and what they're going to report back to the community. You see, for me, people, purpose, pride is the way that I wake up each day and approach my work. It truly is. And I'll share a little bit about how that shapes or how that's going to shape the future of our district. The first is that focusing on people shows my commitment to continuing to engage and hearing from people what's important to them, what matters to them, because everybody cares about education. I don't think I've never heard that. They certainly do. But when you start to ask questions about what is it that you actually care about, I just left a school and met with I won't say which school or the team, but it was a very different meeting than what I thought I was going into when I began to ask questions. What is it that you really need or want? Or how could I support you? And you find when you engage in that way with people that you can put shared expectations, shared commitments on the table, and you can work together in ways that are impossible if there's not that willingness to come together and have sometimes tough discussions, but even more importantly, time to check in with one another. Purpose, a shared purpose is important. Why do schools exist? Why do schools exist? I ask this question a lot. I won't put it out there today, other than what you might be thinking right now. but we exist to provide opportunities for students and support the highest potential possible for them to reach the outcomes that we establish and that we strive for. That is the purpose. That's why we exist. And it has to be a shared and collective effort that we do in this work. I've never seen a school successful by a single teacher or a single classroom or a single principal without parents, without mentors, without coaches. I mean, it really does take a collective community for a supportive school. You can look at your most high-performing schools. You can look at schools that may not perform at the highest level. And each of them have ingredients of need. And many times it's to understand who the child is and what they need for support, and then make a commitment, a sustained effort to make sure that we're addressing what a child might need. Finally, pride, and I'm filled with pride to be in this room, but to be back in Madison. You know, I've said this many times. It hit me about, I don't know, it feels like maybe month 2, and maybe it should have been obvious. But I sat with my team one day, the executive leadership team, and I said, I want you to understand something. This work is really personal to me in such a different way than I've experienced in my 11 previous years being a superintendent. This is where I'm from. This is where I grew up. A lot of the parents of the students in our district right now are my peers. My Board of Education member, Savion Castro, is my former student. I was his principal. Do you think I want to let him down? But more importantly, I want him to be the best board member he can be. I truly do. And I understand what that comes with, the responsibility. But this work is really deeply, deeply personal. I love Madison, and I love MMSD. I really do. That's why I'm back. It truly is. Now, love alone isn't going to get the job done. I know that. I do. So my commitment to students and their success is, you know, and I'll talk about that as I go on today in terms of some of the things we've done, but even more importantly, what is the future for MMSD? What is the future? My goal is for us to be a destination school district, a school district of choice, and a school district that uplifts everyone because we see, we hear, and we value our individuals. And we absolutely must do this. Madison's changed a lot. I've heard this a number of times. I'm here, so I do understand that. And that's a good thing. But I also think it brings with it new opportunities, a new discovery of who we are and who we want to be, even more importantly. And I really think we can be Destination MMSD. I truly do. I was walking around the square, back in May, and I walked by Chase Bank, and I looked up, and I see this sign that says Destination Madison. And I started thinking to myself, what's that? I think I'd heard about it in the past, but I went on and researched their entire strategic plan. I've read it, and I'm like, that's exactly how I feel about our school district. And it's really made me share with others that we are going to be a destination school district, a school district of choice. We know the exponential growth coming to this area. I'll talk about that as I go through this today. Zach was here October 30th to share that. And I think it's really an incredible time for us to think about what the future can be. So who is MMSD? Who are MMSD? We're 25,000 students, 52 schools, more than 6,000 staff members. This year, our enrollment increased for the second time in a row, even though demographer reports said we were going to decline. Okay, I think things are still kind of sorting out following the pandemic. There's no doubt about that. But I also think it's side by side with maybe our demographers didn't quite understand what Zach shared with us on October 30th. There's a lot of interest in this area. We've definitely seen demographic shifts in our student population. I was born in '71. Yeah, students love when I say that because I have to do math. So in 1970, 13% of students in MMSD identified as being a racial minority. And since that time, more than 100,000 people have come to Madison. In that same time, our population grew 100,000. We're also today 60% students of color in our district. So those are incredible changes. I should also add that Madison was 44 square miles in 1970. Today, it's 88 square miles. And if the lakes weren't there, I'm sure it'd be well over 100, right? You can see in the demographics there that our English language learners have continued to go up. That's a national trend. especially in cities like ours, and one that we should be proud of. But it requires different work, not different in terms of less or instilling or making sure that students can assimilate to what we expect them to do. But it's one of great growth for us in understanding cultures from around the world. And I just left a school visit on my way here. And one of the things I said to the principal, I'm like, this is a global community. I really feel that here. And there's no other feeling like that. There truly isn't. I mean, I've worked in schools long enough to know that when you can feel it, when you can see it, when you can sense it, when you can hear it, it's a beautiful thing. And that's what MMSD can be. That's what MMSD is today. And we have to make a commitment to make sure that we are seeing, valuing, and hearing all of our students and their families as well. You can also see that the economically disadvantaged students, and again, we report that by the number of students who qualify for free or reduced price meals, is hovering around 50%. It's been pretty flat over the years. Again, those numbers aren't always the most accurate. They fluctuate. The stigma around, being unhoused or not being able to afford lunch is real, and especially secondary students. So we know that there are many students who are struggling. Transitional Education Program, TEP in MMSD, is Janie Kester here? I thought someone told me Peggy Janie's not here. I thought Janie might be here. So we have a program in the district, and if you've driven by Dayton Street recently, you'll notice right in front of our building that there's some ribbons, purple ribbons that are out front of our district administration building. Each one of those ribbons represents an unhoused or homeless student in our district. And this isn't just a high school thing. This is pre-kindergarten through 12. And right now, today, there's 800 students who we have identified as being unhoused. And we predict by the end of the year that number will rise to about 1,400. Certainly brings with it different challenges in education, trying to meet the needs of the whole child and the family and supporting them. And the goal has to be the same. The goal has to absolutely be the same, that you will do your best today and we will support you to be your best. You all know, again, referencing Zach, that Madison's expected to grow by that same 100,000, except not in 50 years, in 25 years. And I'm looking around at a bunch of people who know that and are thinking about that in everything that we do. And imagine what kind of potential that could bring, but also some of the challenges if we don't do it together and do it well. And I'll come back to that a little bit as I move on as well. So here are some points of pride. We offer dual language immersion at 21 of our schools, Hmong at Lakeview, and Spanish being the prominent one at 19 other sites around the district. 61% of our high school students earned college credit before they graduated last year, and that number is remarkable to me. I was the assistant superintendent for secondary schools before I left in 2013, and I remember this was a dream, to forge those partnerships to ensure that students could get a head start and really dive into an area of interest. And there would be a way that the district and the higher ed institution could support them. 61% is amazing. But guess what? 100% is the number that I'm interested in, giving all of our students a head start if they choose. We continue our long-standing tradition of offering string instruments to every elementary student. And this year, 23 National Merit Scholars were named in our schools. Again, that is a national contest of sorts that comes from the PSAT test. So it is a breakdown of the top test takers in the nation. In Madison, had 23 National Merit Scholars that were named as semifinalists. We set a record in our district in terms of the number of advanced placement tests taken. So we offer AP classes, and students can take the test. There were 4,100 tests given last year. So big that we had to use the Alliant Energy Center for our testing center, which is a big change and one that I hope we continue to grow again, because I think all of our students deserve the chance for the most rigorous opportunities. Key to that is the support that they receive for that. It's one thing to invite students into rigorous course options. It's another thing to support them to be their best. Because it's a lot easier sometimes to give up when things get hard. And we want to help our students achieve and reach for the sky. We're also committed to early learning. Did you know that 27 MMSD schools offer full or half-day 4-year-old kindergarten? Again, another thing that's amazing. I'll be honest, Madison was a little bit late at 4K. I remember when I left and right before, we were just really starting how we could offer this program in our district. It's not fully funded, so even though it's full day, we're funded 50%. So it's an investment that we make, and I think it's an investment that pays off and will pay off into the future as well. 4 of our schools were recently named by the U.S. News and World Report among the top 100 schools in Wisconsin. Shorewood was number 8, Van Heist number 12, Velma Hamilton Middle School number 15, and Randall Elementary number 29. Again, remarkable. And there's a history of excellence in MMSD. And we're proud of the work that we do. There's no doubt about that, but we have so much more to accomplish. And I want every school to be as successful as it can be, and I want every student to feel like when they walk through that school, like there's a place for them to be their best, a place for them to do their best work and to dream about futures that they want. There's nothing better than asking a second grader, what do you want to be? Today, this one was heart-tugging for me because I remember a now 28-year-old saying the same thing when she was 5. Little girl said she wanted to be a zookeeper. And I thought, how cool. You know, how cool. Caring, loves animals. And it's just neat to hear students express what they want to be. So what's next? The referendum passed. And thank you to many of you who supported that work. You know, people are choosing Madison as a place to live, work, and learn. Zach presented recently here on October 30th. We're rapidly growing. It's an innovative community. I don't know about you, but some of the data he shared it really made me scratch my head quite a bit. And it continues to attract young, educated professionals. We know that. But we also know with population growth that there's a need for other services. And when there's a need for other services, there's also resurgence and a need for a workforce. So as I think about that, I think about what Madison could be for families, for new families. Yes, there's a national birth rate decline. There is. I've looked at these numbers. States and cities and districts are looking at this all the time. I've been through school closures. It is not fun. It is not a good thing at all to go out to the community and engage with them to say, hey, we're thinking about closing your school. How do you feel about that? So not the position that we want to take at all. We want to make sure we're offering excellent educational opportunities throughout our 52 schools, and we want to make sure that people know that there's a place for them in MMSD. We're also an essential pillar to the workforce and how we can prepare our youth for that future workforce that I spoke of. Something that I've been very bold about the last 7 or 8 years, boards and organizations that I belong to, is the recognition that the spaces I'm in rarely look like the classrooms that I visit. And I want to change that. No, there shouldn't be a talent drain from Madison. At every level of the workforce, every sector, there should be the ability for our young people to see themselves in futures that they may not know exist, but with the encouragement, mentorship, guidance, direction, education, we can do this as a Madison community, not just the school district community, all of us. We need a plan for the future, and we'll begin to develop a strategic plan that will be the roadmap for our priorities as we move forward. It's essential that we do that work. It's hard for me to tell the board, this is what we've accomplished, this is what I'm accountable for, if it isn't written down and understood by the community. So this work with the referendum behind us is the next phase, developing what are the new strategic priorities for MMSD. And some of that's going to have to be priority-based budgeting. All right, some of it is going to have to be priority-based budgeting, meaning that we have to identify what the priorities are and make sure they have the required funding, to sustain our efforts, to develop impact. We can't fund everything. We just can't. And those are really hard decisions to make, and even though you pass a referendum, there are still some real challenges to how school districts are funded in the state of Wisconsin. As of today, the funding formula hasn't changed. There's still about a $3,000 gap in the per pupil formula that we receive today versus what we would have received with some inflationary increases over the last 12, 13 years. And we're still looking at a reimbursement rate in special education, and I won't talk about this in detail because it would be about a half hour. But in 1975, when the Individual Disability Education Act was passed, the federal government said, we're good for 40% of the costs. States, you have to come up with the rest. We are currently at about 12% of the reimbursement that we get from the federal government, and the state chips in the rest. In MMSD, what this means, everyone, is that $66.4 million every year we have to transfer from our general fund to pay the federally mandated costs of providing specialized services to students who deserve it, to students who are choosing their school to be served in the ways that their individual education plans call for. And it is, I was shocked to learn this number. My previous number in my previous district was 42 million. I thought there's no way that it could be more. And when I saw that it was $66.4 million here, it was really troubling for me to understand that and to know that year after year after year that transfer is taking place, and really difficult for us to meet the goals and objectives that we have for the school district. So we're going to plan also on the long-range facilities plan. As you know, the second question in the referendum was to agree to replace or renovate our aging facilities, and in fact 10 of them. Starting in 2026, we're going to begin with Shabazz and Sherman Middle School as our first two sites that are going to undergo construction. 26 of our schools were built 60 years ago. It's time for us to give them a modern update. Some of you have been in our high schools or Southside Elementary or Capitol High, and it's incredible what that support has been able to do. So the challenges I share are real, but we've got to center on the needs of our children. And I'm going to skip around a little bit here because I know I also want to save time for some questions. Let's talk about innovation a little bit. So I talked about early learning, and early learning is important for so many reasons. One, to give our students the best start possible. Executive function is such an important aspect of students being ready and prepared for school, and I think we have to flip this a little bit. We've often talked about our students ready for school, and I think it's time that we start thinking about, are we ready for students as adults? Let's really truly commit to a student-centered focus on what children, families, communities need. And let's have that be the way that we enter the work. Instead of fixing what students don't have, let's make sure that we get ourselves in the right place to receive our children and help them be the best version of themselves. Multilingual education, again, is a cornerstone. Those numbers continue to go up in terms of children who do not speak, or English isn't the spoken language at home. And I think we have a responsibility to unlock their potential in their native language if they choose, and look for pathways so that that language can be seen as an asset, both to their heritage and to the language acquisition and skill development. 54% of students in MMSD participate in a co-curricular. 54%. I think that number is a little too low because it's one of the things when I talk to students and families and communities, they often talk about is a real engagement factor in their child being successful in school. Did you know that 0.63% of our overall budget is spent on co-curriculars? 0.63%. Okay, so we've got some work to do. We've got some work to do. I think that there are many new opportunities, and it doesn't have to just be sports. We've talked about music a little bit, but there are many ways for us to work with our students outside of the normal school day to find ways to engage them, again, to really look to advance. We are also expanding college and career readiness and technical education. Some of you may know this, and I got to give my thanks to Dr. Daniels at Madison College. Again, where this partnership is today to where it was in 2013, incredible that we have academies in biomedical, networking, cybersecurity, running start, STEM, and education. These are all academies that are happening at Madison College that are either happening or in development that allow our students, juniors or seniors, to spend the bulk of their day on the Madison College campus to get the college credits and experiences that help them both move towards their high school graduation and towards a credential. That credential could be a 2-year, but it could also move into a 4-year credential at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. So just incredible opportunities that our students have. And I talk to some of our students and their families who tell me that it's like a new person when they see their children experience that and be exposed to something that might be so far out of what they thought was possible. To me, it's the definition of what engagement and what learning truly is all about. So we've got to look for ways to continue to help our students earn those opportunities. The funding system in education isn't real great for this work. It just isn't, because when you move a student from one environment to another, there's cost associated, And when they're not in one place, you don't get the cost you don't get the average daily membership, to talk school district jargon. Schools lose funding if students aren't in their seats. So it's kind of a juxtaposition in terms of we want to create these opportunities, but we also need to hold on to what our schools continue to offer. We can't just get rid of one by creating the other. So it's a really difficult position that districts can be put in. I think we can solve it. I really do. We also have to talk about the science of reading. The science of reading. How many of you are familiar with that phrase? The science of reading. Or Act 20, that it is now a law in the state of Wisconsin that teachers must have an approved curriculum, training in an approved curriculum in the science of reading. That's a law. Now, it might seem kind of odd that it's 2024 and it's now law that we have to know how to teach children to read the right way and provide the training. And I think this is a really important distinction for us to consider, because there are so many of you who have spent so many years providing support or tutoring in reading, but we know now how to do it right. And I'm not going to talk about the past, I'm not, but we know how to do it right. And my position is to involve the entire community in how to help our students be confident, proficient, and excellent readers, using information to the best of their abilities. And I want to give you just a quick mini lesson on this and then examples of what the science of reading is and how many of you in the room, I know this just by kind of a scan of age, learned how to read in a balanced literacy or whole language aspect. So 2 things are true about reading. Well, many things are true, but 2 things I want you to think about. When we think about kindergarten, 1st, 2nd grade, we're talking about learning how to read. As students advance and they learn how to read, we start to transition to reading to learn. I taught high school biology. Okay, I gave a big fancy textbook and said, give me this information from the text that you have. They're reading to learn versus here's your first book, you're learning to read. Okay, so a really key distinction. And one of the shifts in balanced literacy, whole language, that we have to consider is that approach was really a lot about looking at whole words and in some ways trying to predict or guess based on pictures, previous text, context that you do or don't have, and in some ways imagining what that word might be, sounding it out. Does this sound familiar to some of you? That was balanced language. The science of reading is different. Phonemic awareness and phonics play such an important role in being able to decipher the difficult English language that we speak. It really is. Here's an example of it. The letter C. The letter C. So I could think of the letter C sounding like ca. I could think of it sounding as s. I could think of it sounding as ch. I could think of it starting as s. I could think of it sounding as k. The word cat, city, chair, place, back. Now, the C sounds differently in every one of those words, but it's based on a rule. It's based on how it's positioned in the word and with what letter might be next to it. And children in kindergarten, in 1st grade, need to learn this important way to decode words. That is the science of reading. If you go into our classrooms today where it is being done in an excellent way, you will see students and teachers drilling on making sure that those sounds are right, making sure that the rules are understood, but even more importantly, it leads into comprehending and understanding the meaning of words, the vocabulary of words, how they're used, making meaning. So it's such an important thing, and I'm excited more than ever that there's this push for us to do this, and it's given us, I think, a really new, refound effort to teach literacy in a new and a better way. And I'm excited about the future for MMSD. I've talked about some of the modernized learning. I'll end with this before I take some questions from you. So I got back last night from a meeting where national leaders in education got together, and our job is to, for an organization we belong to, come up with the next 5-year strategic plan for the future of the nation's school children. And, you might think that I leave that meeting and I come back here knowing that I was going to speak to you today, and I would be able to say to you, here's what it is. Here's what it is. And that's not the case, because let me go back to people, purpose, and pride. We have to understand locally who we are, who our children and our families are, what resources we have, what external support that we have, and we need to be committed to coming together to determine what the future of our school district is going to be and the opportunities and outcomes that we want for our children. I don't think it's going to be the next great external message or decree about what we have to do. I think the answers to us solving education for so many who we want to have a better experience has got to be solved together as a community, with our teachers, with our parents, with our caretakers, with so many of you, and I'm looking out at a group who has given so much to the children in this community, your own as well, but also to the school children in MMSD. I'm so grateful that I get to lead in a city I love, a school district I love, and with people who love our kids and love our schools. I really thank you, and I'll stand for questions.
Joe, a lot of us voted for the referendum and voted for the last referendum. What things can we do to support you as you start your leadership with Madison Schools?
Yeah, thank you, Oscar. And Oscar, by the way, a real mentor and friend of mine, too. Really appreciate all of your work. So I think this, again, I'm so grateful for the support, but there's still a lot of work to do in terms of how can we develop impact for the resources we spend, and even more importantly, how can we sustain it? I think some of the more difficult things that we've had to do is we build it only to break it back down because we can't afford it. So I think the priorities that I mentioned are going to be really important, and these aren't my priorities, they're the priorities of the community, but they're the priorities of the school board too. But to make sure that what we tell our community we're going to do, we do. Now, with that, there will be some decisions that people don't like. I understand that. But if our goal is to truly impact the experiences for students and do this in a consistent, excellent way, then we have got to make some of these really sometimes difficult priority-based decisions.
Hi, I'm Karen Kendrick Hands, proud to have 2 grandchildren in your excellent school system. Pleased to hear all your work with college prep, but we learned yesterday that America needs more electricians than any other skilled trade, and yet it seems like the trades don't get enough respect. What can you do, and what can we help you do to elevate the honor and importance of a vocational or technical education? Because not everybody belongs in college.
Yeah, I think it's It's a great point, and again, sometimes acronyms kind of lose, the real purpose. CTE includes opportunities in the trades, apprenticeships, exposure. I've had some really good meetings with the regional labor trade groups as well, and I know it's a desire for them to try to create the next generation. I think what this is going to get back to, though, is understanding where those opportunities for partnership live, and looking for ways to do it in a new way, and holding ourselves accountable too. I think that's the big piece. It's one thing to shake hands and say, let's do this. It's another thing to come back frequently and assess how things are going, and making sure that we're looking for ways to better our partnership and our ways of coming together.
Thank you so much for everything that you are doing. One of the things I'm very concerned about is this dismantling of the Department of Education and how that's going to affect our kids on an IEP. I had a kid that went through MMSD with an IEP, and I will say it was prohibitively hard. And I am lucky enough that I was a parent to be able to come back and forth to school to support my son. But with this now mandate possibly going away, what are you all doing to plan for that in advance?
Thank you, Dana. And I wish I had the answer for you, other than we need to remain local too. I know what this community expects from me, and that isn't going to stop. Now, if it's funding in a different course by the Department of Education, of course, we're going to work with our local and state leaders, work with our school boards and our associations. It's still a federal mandate. It absolutely is. And we're going to have to look for ways to support our most vulnerable students. There's no doubt about that. Many concerns based on some of the rhetoric that we're hearing that we do have to be prepared for. Grateful again that we have Dane County, we have the city of Madison, we have a room filled with people who care about our community. There are so many districts who don't have it this way. So I feel very fortunate, and I expect us to continue to be leaders regardless of decisions that are made on Pennsylvania Avenue.
Hey, Joe, thanks for the presentation. Quick question for you. So are there other cities or communities that have been in a similar situation to what we're in right now that have done it right, that are good models for us to, do the same thing?
Yeah, I think there are a lot. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to travel to a lot of other districts and connect with other leaders in cities like ours that are taking off, Austin, Nashville, but also cities that are kind of in this rebirth. Cleveland, for example, went through a lot of really hard years in their school district, and through their superintendent community, they really forged some new, exciting ways of doing this work in a better way. I think that as we look at it, we've got to be able to do this in a way that provides the framework to our community so that it isn't just a series of one-offs, that it really is this larger plan that people can get behind, understand, see themselves in it, and then execute it. And while there might be a lot of ideas from other cities, other places, again, I continue to come back to we have to stay local too. We really do. Madison's not like a lot of other places. I say that without judgment. Because everybody thinks their city's the best. Everybody thinks their school district's the best, me included. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to frame this conversation in terms of what do we want to do? What do we have to offer each other? And how can we, again, keep students at the center?
Hi, I'm Larry Hans. I'm wondering about STEM education. Ever since Sputnik, there seems to be more and more emphasis on STEM, and I think that's resulted in fewer and fewer hours of education towards civics. And everybody's a citizen, but only a small percentage of school kids go into STEM. How do we change that?
So the question about STEM or about civics? I think both are important. I also think we want our STEM folks to be civically minded too. I'm not going to say that you walk into a school today and it feels different than it used to. But you know what? I walked through these schools. I went to these schools. I'm looking at Kaleem, both class 89. I won't say what school he went to, but we have a lot of years of experience of having our feet on the ground in our schools and in our community. And have things changed? What do we want change to be? I mean, to me, that's where our efforts should be spent. It really should. And civics, how I know it, or civics, how a student might feel it, or a school community might feel it, or a parent or a grandparent in the community might feel it. I think there's a lot for us to consider about how can we create spaces in our communities for us to come together, to sometimes have challenging discussions, differences of opinion, where it's safe, and you feel like you can actually say what's on your mind. Kaleem and I are a great example of that. We were friends long before we were school leaders, that's for sure. And I think he would say the same thing. That's never been questioned. We might have very different approaches and different ideas about how we're each leading our organizations, but the friendship has never changed, that's for sure. And I think that that's an example of how we need to work as a community. We don't have to agree or be of the same mind on everything, but we do have to be a community. I just told the second graders this, almost verbatim.
Let's thank again MMSD Superintendent Dr. Joe Gothard. And thank you all for joining us. I can say we We are so thankful that you came back home to Madison to lead our school district at such a crucial time for our community. So thank you, Dr. Joe Gothard. Hope you can join us next Wednesday. We're going to hear from Rebecca Redman, who will discuss the Lullaby Project. We will see you a week from now. Have a wonderful week, and thank you for all you do for our community.